So guys, if you do miss a show, if anything happens, we're like, oh shoot, the show is like an hour long, an hour plus long, and I can't watch the whole thing. We definitely will have a video out for you in terms of clipping it, so that way you guys can see like, okay, I really just want to focus on the power rankings, or I want to focus on the Kyrie story, or I want to focus on John Wall and what the trade for the Houston Rockets is going to be. So just look for that. And Sean, I will check out the prices of our NFTs on the NBA in just a little bit. Tyrese, are you still there? I think we lost Tyrese for a second. So we're just gonna wait for him to come back. So as we wait, let's
Hello?
what's up, Tyrese? You all set?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. So let's do you want to just kind of do let's just do 5 today.
Okay. Yeah.
And then tomorrow we can get kind of the rest of it in the longer stream, just because I have a little bit of a time crunch with some other things, but I do want to talk at least a little bit about it before we kind of get going.
Okay, for sure.
So let's kind of start from the back and then we'll work our way up. Number 30 is the Houston Rockets. So the Houston Rockets, this is what it says here. The current iteration of these Rockets look like one of the worst teams in the NBA following James Harden's blockbuster trade, but that's not hyperbole. Here's a team that lost 45 of its 51 regular season games. The good news, Houston added a potential franchise cornerstone, Jalen Green, with the second pick in the 2021 NBA draft. Now, Tyrese, do you agree that the Houston Rockets are the 30th or are the worst team in the NBA going into this season?
Trying to think, because that's a real tough question.
I mean, as you think,
honestly,
go ahead.
I don't know, man. It's kind of like a tie between them and the Kings.
Really, them and the Kings, interesting.
Yeah, just because I think, well, unless they load John Wall, I'm going off of what they have now. So like, if they still have John Wall, Christian Wood, Eric Gordon, and they start the season, they're not going to be one of the worst teams. Like, it's not going to happen. Honestly, if we're talking about the team roster they have now, no, I don't believe that.
Yeah, I mean, my thing with the Houston Rockets at this point, I don't think that they're the worst team in the world. Like, I understand that they're very young, and you could say that very young, inexperienced teams are always tend to do worse because they're not veterans, they're not experienced. They're going to get bullied by the older veteran teams that are out there. Like, the Lakers are probably going to bully them. The Nets are going to bully them, and you're going to get a bunch of these like older veteran teams that are championship hungry, obviously going to bully them. But what I will say about the Houston Rockets is that they have something going for them this season. And if, like, let's say John Wall doesn't get traded, there's no way that he doesn't play. Like, as much as we know he says that I'm going to not play until I'm traded, but look, no one's going to pay that money, and we just talked about it in a previous segment, so go and check that video out if you haven't. My whole thing with it is that, like, I think the Rockets are in a great position if John Wall stays, and I don't think that they're going to be the worst team in the world. I honestly think they're still going to be bad, but they're not going to be worse than I think some of these other teams that we'll talk about before we kind of get this stuff going.
Yeah, okay.
Like, I mean, I think the Detroit Pistons can be in the similar boat. I think the Orlando Magic can be in the similar boat. Just because, they're really guard heavy at this point, and they don't really have a lot of wing players besides Isaacs, and he's just coming off of a ACL injury. So it's kind of one of those things, you look at it and you're seeing the whole league, and I'm just like, I'm not sure if Houston is really necessarily the worst team in the world.
No, I don't think they're the worst. I piggyback of what you said about the Magic. Yeah, they're just really guard heavy. They would probably be the last pick in the NBA as far as record wise, and just yeah. I don't think it's the Rockets. There's no way. If they have the same players they have now and they don't unload, then yeah, they're not 30.
Exactly.
In my opinion.
And then, as we kind of move on, we can talk a little bit about the Magic. I mean, we kind of talked about them, so you know what? Screw it. We'll talk about the whole league. We'll talk about the whole league this tonight.
Okay.
We're making a long one. So the Orlando Magic at 29, again, I don't think that they're necessarily like the. I feel like they're kind of ranked where they should be, right? Kind of like at that 29, 30. You know, the Houston OKC is the worst team. We'll talk about them in a little bit, Sean. But I do think, like, you know, right now with the Orlando Magic, it's one of those things. Like you said, they're guard heavy right now. They don't really have the pieces around Jalen Suggs, who I think that they should
Yep.
build their team around. They definitely don't have something there where they should like. They're not like focusing on they need to build through the draft, and I think they need to a couple more seasons before they can really start to contend and actually go to the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. They're just very young. You know, they're still trying to get it together, but then again, they just have way too many guards. But then again, I mean, I like the pick they made in Jalen Suggs. Honestly, a lot of people don't know this, but I think the guy who drafted Giannis is the same guy who drafted Jalen. So, I mean, maybe he could be the next cornerstone for the Magic going forward.
Hey man,
Um,
I think the Jalen Suggs is a great pick. I thought the Raptors should have taken him. I think my friend Sean obviously has his Gonzaga bias, but I do agree with him in the terms of I do think that Jalen Suggs should have been the dude that they took.
oh yeah, he's hands down one of the best players in this draft. Just talent from a talent perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not into drama either off the court. Like
Yep.
real good, solid player.
Yep. No drama off the court. Basically, all work on the court, and that's something that you want to see out of your rookies, unless you're like crazy talented like LaMelo Ball. That's only, and we'll talk about his stuff maybe a little bit, maybe at some point during the weeks as the season kind of comes up. So basically at 28 as kind of the bottom three, they have the Oklahoma City Thunder, and this is where Sean says that they are the worst team. They honestly could be. You know, as much as I love Shea Gilgeous, they basically have nothing else to work with on that roster.
Yeah.
This article talks about the future is bright for these Thunder. They legitimately have 20 first round picks over the next half decade. However, they did not lead to success last season after trading away Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder. Oklahoma City now has Shea Gilgeous on a newly minted extension and just added star guard Josh Giddey. I'm not sure, or stud guard. I'm not sure if he's really a stud at this point. We have no idea about Giddey. To the mix with the sixth pick in the draft. Now it's time to rebuild the process and take hold in OKC. And I've talked about this numerous amount of times on the stream. I'm not a big fan of basically doing what any person would do on like a 2K franchise career mode, which is like trade all your bad players to get these first round picks and then turn those first round picks into assets for another player, or really trying to save it to draft the guy that you want in the draft. It never works out that way. As much as people would like to think it does, it just does not.
Yep, you're right.
Um,
Completely right. I agree.
and I just think, kind of reevaluating, I do think that they are one of the worst. They're really
Yeah,
bad.
I mean, yeah, they have really nothing to work with. But if there was a somehow worse, whoever wins this game is a worse team between the Thunder and let's just say, I don't know, the Magic. I think they would beat the Magic in a 7 game. Like, uh,
It's
I
tough.
don't think they're the worst. I think they're good where they're at. 28.
28. So who would you have at 30 then? If
Yeah.
we had to rearrange these bottom three, would you have the the Rockets still at 30?
No, I'll have the Rockets at 29. No, honestly, well,
See,
yeah, I'll
like
have the Rockets at 29.
Rockets
No, I'll
29.
have the Rockets at 28. I'll have the Rockets at 28 and the Thunder at 29 and the Magic at 30.
I think I would kind of do a reverse order here. So I would have the Rockets at 28. I have the Orlando Magic at 29, and then the OKC Thunder at 30. Just because, like, kind of looking at their roster and the way that's constructed right now, like it's basically just Shea Gilgeous and a bunch of other guys. Like I know
They got Dort.
they got Dort. I know he's still developing though, and then you also have what's the dude's name, Pookie. Pookie, another guy that Bill Simmons is apparently like
Yeah.
getting, you know, having a hard on for. So it's just kind of like, you know, you look at that and I'm just like, I don't know. 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 I And then you drop Josh Giddey, who a lot of scouts and a lot of people around the league are not really sure about what his potential is in the future. And you're just like, I just feel like it's just not a good move at this point. And so I have to put the Oklahoma City Thunder at 30 because I feel like the other two teams' rosters could potentially beat out the Oklahoma City Thunder, even if they do have Shea Gilgeous.
Yeah, but I mean, like they have Billy Donovan still, right?
Trash
Or no, he's
coach.
with Chicago now. Is he?
Trash
Is
coach.
he with? Is he with Chicago now, or
He's
is he
with
still with the
Chicago.
Thunder? Yeah, but I mean, Dort. I mean, he did show some flashes, man. I mean, he was. I was placing some wagers against the
Mm-hmm.
Thunder, and he was actually keeping them in the games. So I wouldn't say they're dead last. I would say they're at 29, and I will put the Thunder at 28 if they don't unload the boat.
Yeah. Let's kind of move on to the next teams. Of course, we have the Sacramento Kings at 27. This talks about Justin. I mean, we'll see. This is a prove it year for the Bulls, man. Like I need to see something from Billy Donovan now.
Oh no, I'm bullish on the Bulls.
You're
I'm very
bullish.
bullish. Yeah, I'm very bullish. I said a fifth seed.
You did. That you did. We'll talk about them a little bit later in this stream. But right now we got 27 Sacramento Kings. They say on the surface, Sacramento has a star power in that of De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton. That did not translate to much success last season. Unfortunately, it was announced that Luke Walton will be retained. Adding another layer to the issues in California's capital city is the fact that the Kings added another guard in Davion Mitchell with the 9th pick in the draft. While he is good, we're questioning the roster building method of the general manager, Monty McNair. And I think that it's fair to kind of criticize the Sacramento Kings at this point. They're one of those teams and one of those organizations that continuously just does not do a good job. I think they've done a better job in the past right now. I think Davion Mitchell, watching him in the summer league, and again, it is summer league, but I think his defense is going to translate into the league. The question now is like, what do you do with all three of those guards? Because you draft him at 9. You're hoping that he will be a starter, or at least someone that plays significant amount of minutes for you. And with Marvin Bagley also kind of 1 foot out the door too, with the way that he's felt that he's been treated. It's just kind of been a very tumultuous sort of roster and situation with the Sacramento Kings right now.
Yeah, they're just all over the place. Their owner just doesn't know what to do. I mean, honestly, I think they're gonna see what they got with the kid they just drafted because he was very talented, and they're probably gonna decide to keep him over Darian Fox and try to get some value. Maybe they can try to trade for somebody with some, who has the point guard hole and maybe get a pretty good solid player they otherwise wouldn't get in free agency. So
Yeah.
I think they're gonna move on. I think they're gonna move on from Darian Fox. I don't know if it's this year or next year, but I think it's gonna probably be next year because, I mean, I think they're gonna try to focus on the guy they just drafted and Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, they're gonna focus on Halliburton and Davion. I feel like that'd be a good 1-2 combo. Because I feel like you got Tyrese Halliburton who can be the point guard scorer.
Exactly.
And then you got Davion Mitchell, more of the defender, but also can score and just basically be kind of a knockdown shooter with the way that he shot the three last year at Baylor.
Yep.
But at 26, we have the Detroit Pistons. Drafted Cade Cunningham. That's basically what this talks about in the little description box. Detroit's rebuild upper and up and coming general manager Torrey Weaver, which will depend heavily on how rookie number 1 pick and generational talent performs. However, the presidents of 2020 first round pick Sadiq Bey, Killian Hayes, and Isaiah Stewart will also help in the matter.
Yeah,
Detroit's talented but inexperienced. Again, a team that I honestly feel like should be at the bottom with the way that they're rostered.
Yeah.
And again, I did get into a little bit of an argument, or not an argument, I should say, but more so, I did get called a Bruno Mars wannabe by one of our new subscribers that just subscribed. So shout out to you, man. But the reason why, on the surface level, maybe I'm not like bullish on the Detroit Pistons at this point is because I'm not a huge believer in Killian Hayes. I've seen the way that he's played. I've seen kind of some stuff from Summer League that I continue to see when I was watching their games. I did buy League Pass. I'd have watched a handful of their games. Not saying I've watched every single game because obviously they're not my team. The Boston
Right.
Celtics are. Shout out Boston. But at the same time, I did see enough from Killian where I wasn't one of those guys that was like, oh, Killian is gonna be the steal of the draft. I felt like I was always
Yeah.
iffy on him because I just felt
Yeah,
like
and I mean,
he can't shoot, and
he's just a pretty
over
boy, man.
dribbler.
That's it.
Over dribbler to me. I feel like he's just an over dribbler instead of passing the ball up and getting other guys in opportunities, and can only really go left at this point. Can't really do anything
Yeah,
with his right.
yeah,
I know
that's
he's
all he
young,
can
but
do, man. Yeah, he's only 20, but I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what they seen in him, but other than that, Stewart. I mean, he's very good. Stewart. He kind of has that Detroit kind of like play to him, tough grittiness.
mhm.
Honestly, I think he can. Was it him or Sadiq Bey?
Sadiq
I
Bey
think
looked
it
good
was.
last year. He was the guy that I think he was drafted over, I believe, Aaron Naismith. Or we could have gone Sadiq Bey, but we got Naismith instead. So, I obviously, kudos to the Pistons for drafting him. My whole thing too is like, Jeremy Grant. I mean, does he even fit the timeline of this generation build that you're trying to build with Cade Cunningham, Sadiq Bey, Killian Hayes, and Isaiah Stewart? Like, I don't feel like he fits the timeline, and because he doesn't fit the timeline, I don't think that you're gonna really necessarily have a strong Detroit Pistons team in the next couple years. Because I do feel like they're gonna trade him away.
Yeah, but remember, they were trying to unload him last year, and the Celtics were interested, I believe, and they wanted the farm because he was averaging, I think, like 25 a game, and he was having like he had like three 30-plus point games and like a something like that. It was crazy, but he was going off and
Hmm.
around the All-Star break, and his value, they wanted the farm for him, and his value dropped now, so now they're gonna try to get less, but again, like what team would he fit on, man? Because it's like, yeah, you can get all those points on a team that's depleted, but how do you fit with a team that's has the infrastructure? Like,
Yeah.
and with the Detroit Pistons right now, he just like you say, he doesn't fit the timeline. So yeah, I'm curious to see how that's gonna be.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of like my biggest question mark with the Detroit Pistons, and the fan, or not, I really shouldn't call him a fan, more so a subscriber that we had a conversation, or at least I responded back to his comment. I just think, like I said, I think Detroit is a team that we could potentially, like, I'm a big Cade Cunningham believer. I think he's gonna definitely change that franchise around at some point. But the question is, are they going to have enough pieces around him to create that change that Detroit wants? Because for the past, God knows how long it's been since they've been in the playoffs, where I mean, it's probably, I'm not even sure when the last time Detroit Pistons. Let me look it up so I don't inaccurately describe
I
like
think
when the last time.
2005. I think the last time they went was 2005. Um, Yeah, because I think in 2005, didn't they go to the Eastern Conference Finals after they lost in 2000, after they won in
So
2004?
they did make it into the 2018, 2019, and they were playing the Bucks, and they just got swept. And then before that, it was the Cavaliers. I mean, who's on this 15-16 team? That's
Oh, I
interesting.
think that's when they had Drummond.
Blake
That's when they had
Griffin, Reggie
Blake
Jackson, Luke
Griffin.
Kennard,
Yeah, and Blake Griffin was
Lazaza,
out. He didn't
Bruce
even
Brown.
play.
Yeah. And it's just like the roster's cool and all, and I get it, but at the same time, I think the only time that the last time that you were a significant like playoff contending team was in 2007, 2008, where you actually were competing against
Yep.
some pretty good teams. I mean, if we look at who they were battling up against with this team, I
Oh
mean,
man,
oops, I was never Nuggets.
that's when the team. That's when it was dogs, man. Now it's just all calls every time you drive to the rack, man. It's crazy.
Let's see, 2007, 2008. This was
Yeah.
like Chauncey Billups, Aaron Aflalo, Richard Hamilton. I mean, it was, you had
Yep.
some of those guys still, Tayshaun Prince,
Carmelo,
Rodney Stuckey, Rasheed Wallace. Like, you still had those guys that were on the roster.
Stoudemire, had all those guys.
And it's just like, I'm not getting that sort of vibe from this team. Like, there's no one right now that reminds me of like as a team, like, Sheed, Billups, Tayshaun Prince, Rip Hamilton. Like, no one on this Pistons roster even resembles that at this point.
Oh no, not at all. They're just rebuilding, man. I mean, like,
Yeah,
what else are they gonna do? I mean, who wants to go to Detroit? I
exactly.
mean, like a lot of these franchises, sad to say, they're never gonna win a championship unless they just get lucky. Like nowadays, guys have to go to a market to where it's profitable for their brand.
Right.
Detroit's not profitable. Like it's just not. This isn't '07 where '06 when social media wasn't big, endorsement deals weren't big, you know, tech endorsements weren't big. Like no, 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 no. They're trying to go to LA, New York, Chicago. You know, you get the picture.
Yeah.
But,
Shout out
you know,
Lindsey Hunter. Okay. Okay, Justin. Why don't we combine these next two teams? We got the San Antonio Spurs and the New Orleans Pelicans. Rightly so. I think the Pelicans, we've always kind of had hype hopes for them each and every year, ever since, they traded for those young Lakers players from that big, huge Anthony Davis trade. And it just hasn't amounted to anything at this point. It's always amounted to disappointment. And again, a basketball coach culture of just non-basketball people operating a basketball team, and they're going to lose Zion at some point, man. It's frustrating to watch the Pelicans continue to piss away. As much as I made fun of the Detroit Pistons in my last video, I have also had to make fun of the Pelicans in this video because they continue to piss poor management. They continue to piss away great talented players and just absolutely not build around them. And now you're going to be stuck with Zion, who will probably not likely sign his extension, and then he's going to be gone from the team.
oh yeah, because I mean, like you can't have Brandon. I mean, you could have Brandon Ingram, but Brandon Ingram to me is like a guy who has to be like a third option with like a couple other superstars. You know, like you can't
Yeah.
have Brandon Ingram as kind of like your number one and
Yeah.
Zion kind of as your number one. Like, and just the way they're utilizing him, it's yeah, they're gonna lose him. He's gonna
Yeah.
demand a trade.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, the San Antonio Spurs, they're kind of a very small organization at this point. They have a lot of like good role players or players that could potentially be like great, additions, but you still need a superstar. And I just feel like they're not going to have a superstar for
Yeah.
a while unless they draft one or get one in free agency.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like Pop's getting older, but like then again, you know, it is the Spurs. Like, but I don't know who would want to go there right now. So let's see how they look.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. We'll go 23-22. We'll kind of do a little double-double. We got Cleveland Cavaliers at 23 and Minnesota at 22. Again, Minnesota kind of just, again, a team that you look at it and you're just frustrated because I expect Karl Anthony Towns to be a all-star type of player, like multiple-time all-star, all-NBA team player. But again, just hasn't developed and hasn't really gone to that next level that I would like him to. And I think we talked about him before, Tyrese. Um,
Yeah, I think Cat he just doesn't have a high motor to me. Like in college, he had a very good motor, but like I don't know, man. Like he just doesn't have like a dog, like a KG type, like for his size and like. Yeah, he can get you 25 points, but then again, he's the main guy scoring the ball. Like I'm not as high on Cat as a lot of people are. Like, yeah, he's not really too much of a guy who can really take the Timberwolves to the next level by himself.
mm,
So, I'm curious to see how it's gonna look, man, because they don't want to trade him because he likes Minnesota and he gets to be his own guy there and his team, but I don't know, man. We'll see how it's looking though. But I think that's about right. 22. Nah,
yeah,
yeah, 22, 22. Yeah, 23.
yeah.
22, 23.
And Justin, he says captain all-star. Yes, he's been all-star twice. 17, 18, and then 18, 19. And yeah, I mean, the mom passing is obviously tough, and we can't like
Yeah.
discredit or like be kind of douches about it, but we also have to be, from a basketball perspective, he hasn't grown in the way that we would like.
Hmm.
23 Cavaliers, again, one of these franchises that ever since LeBron left just can't seem to get it right. They've tried multiple times. They've tried every single year, whether it was Garland, whether it was Sexton. Now they're going with this kind of core of like Jarrett Allen. And now even
Demigods.
demigods trying to create like the ultimate tall lineup, kind of
Yeah.
the new meta in 2K. Um, I think that it's probably rightly so that they're a 23. I mean, they're not a team that I'm like, wow, they excite me. They made so many great roster moves. Um, and I'm not like a huge Evan Mobley guy because I don't think he's a guy that can carry a team. I feel like he's a great player,
Nah.
or like a good player that could potentially be like a second or third option, but I just don't think can be the number one guy.
Yeah, not even that. I don't even think he could be a second or third. I think he can potentially be like a good starting center. He could be a good starting center,
Oh
but he
damn!
won't
So
be
you're
like no
so you're
Deon.
low on him.
Yeah, I'm very low. He's not going to be no DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could
So,
see that. I mean, definitely, like you look at it and you're hoping that you can get something from him, but it's looking.
because man, like honestly, we thought the same with Marvin Bagley. Like, look at him now.
I always thought he was a bust. I don't know. I'm not sure when last. I'm not sure when you followed this channel, but me and my boy Pete routinely talked about him. Like I always thought he was gonna be a bust because he reminded me too much of Jaleel Okafor.
Really? Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Jaleel Okafor was a little bit slower, like as far as his movements, but that's interesting.
And now